So when we talk about economic freedom, we tend to talk about GDP because that's one of the most obvious correlations, is that as you have more economic freedom, you have more GDP. We know this is particularly important for the poor, but it's not just about money. Economic freedom is positively associated with lots of things we like longer lifespans, less disease, and it's negatively associated with things we don't like, so less corruption. If you're poor in a country with high levels of economic freedom, it's much different than being poor in a country with low levels of economic freedom. And this is not to minimize poverty in the United States. I've spent time today talking about abject poverty across the globe. That's very different than poverty in the United States. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard to be poor in this country. But again, what it means is, as Christians, how do we think through how to long-term help the people who are poor, who are suffering? And often we're going to be called to do hard things. I always think of it this way. If my neighbor's house burned down, and they had a couple kids, God might call me to open my home up to them. And that would be hard. I live in a townhouse. It's not that big. I have 2 kids. One's a newborn, Unless you're the parent, the crying is probably annoying to you. So, it would be hard for everybody, but I might be called to do that. But nobody probably would say you should live with me forever. So helping people in the short term who are poor looks very different than long-term poverty alleviation. And when I say long-term, I mean people get out of poverty and they stay out. Not only do they just stay out, they are able to grow. Okay, so in this country, the status of economic freedom is not looking good. In 2000, the Economic Freedom of the World report suggested that we were number 2 in the world. Of all the countries that we can survey, we're number 2. Today, we're number 18. And our quality of life is dropping as that number goes down. And I'm here also to tell you that the rich are much more able to absorb those decreases in quality of life than the poor. Think about the recent recession. Think about the financial crisis. These things are very hard to absorb if you're poor. And in our increasing regulatory environment, we're making it hard for poor people to have an idea and to live it out. I live in Loudoun County, which is one of the most fastest growing counties in the country, and you see this all the time. This is a food truck that's run by, typically an El Salvadorian woman who's making pupusas. And so what they do is they drive the food truck to these construction sites in these very, kind of suburb areas. So there's not a lot of food right around where your job is. So this woman who does this right by my house, and I can see the truck come in during lunchtime to my neighborhood because my neighborhood's under construction. She just wants to make pupusas so that she can make some money. She had an idea. I have a recipe. People like it. Hey, maybe I can have a truck and I can have this idea to drive around to people at construction sites because they can't leave the job. They've only got a half an hour lunch break. We need to make it easy for her and people like her to take a bet on that idea and to serve others, because in serving those people that work on the construction site, she's making herself and them better off.